He was peculiar, even as a young man, not the sort of peculiar that turned heads, but the kind that drew whispers at family gatherings while others dove into succulent roasts and sizzling steaks. He quietly filled his plate with greens, potatoes, and bread. When asked why he avoided meat, he'd shrug with a polite smile and say, "It just doesn't feel right for me." This wasn't in the bustling, health-conscious world of today, but in the 1970s, a time when being a vegetarian was almost unheard of, especially for someone growing up in Middle America. The whispers didn't stop. "Doesn't he know you need meat for strength? What's wrong with him? It's a phase, surely." But it wasn't. The epiphany. Lynch, let's call him that for now, was in his early 20s, living in a small, cramped apartment in Philadelphia. He was a dreamer, often lost in his thoughts, sketching abstract ideas onto yellowing notebooks. But one day, while visiting a friend who lived on the outskirts of the city, he witnessed something that would change him forever. The friend owned a small farm and, among other animals, raised pigs. Lynch had always thought of animals as distant beings existing purely in the abstract, like birds flying in the sky or dogs wagging their tails. But when his friend cheerfully mentioned it was slaughter day and invited him to watch, Lynch hesitated. Still he went. What he saw haunted him. The pig, a creature that had just moments ago been snorting happily in its pen, was now silent. There was no malice, no anger from his friend, just the quiet efficiency of someone doing what they'd done 100 times before. But for Lynch it wasn't routine. It was a jarring revelation. That night he couldn't sleep. The pig's eyes, the brief look of panic before it was silent, stayed with him. What if I don't need to be part of this? He thought. And so he decided. A lonely road. It wasn't easy. His friends teased him relentlessly. "What's next? Hugging trees. Careful, your lettuce might run away." Even his own parents were confused. His father, a gruff man of few words, muttered over breakfast one day, "It's unnatural." His mother, more understanding but equally perplexed, would quietly sneak chicken broth into his soups, thinking he'd never notice. He always did. But Lynch was resolute. He discovered new foods, experimented with lentils and beans, and even took to baking his own bread when he couldn't find options that didn't involve animal fat. Over time, his vegetarian diet became less a novelty and more a part of who he was. And while his plate was a source of ridicule, it was also his anchor, clarity and simplicity. As the years passed, Lynch began to notice something unexpected. His thoughts felt sharper. His dreams, always vivid, became even more so. His work, though often misunderstood, was gaining recognition. Friends and collaborators often asked him about his creative process. How did he come up with such vivid, unsettling ideas? How did he maintain his focus through grueling projects that spanned months, even years? He would always smile, that same polite smile, and say, "It's just the way my mind works." But privately he wondered, could it be the diet? The simplicity of it? The decision to live without the weight of taking life, however indirectly? It wasn't just about clarity of thought. It felt clean. The conversation. One evening, after a particularly long day of work, a colleague invited Lynch out for dinner. They ended up at a steakhouse. Lynch, as usual, ordered a salad and a side of vegetables. The colleague couldn't help but laugh. "You've got to be kidding me. A guy like you eating rabbit food." Lynch smiled. "I've been doing this for years." "Why?" The smile faded just slightly. "Because it helps me see clearly." The colleague didn't understand, but Lynch didn't expect him to. The legacy. Decades later, Lynch's name became synonymous with creativity and mystery. His work captivated audiences, plunging them into surreal worlds that felt both familiar and alien. His process, often shrouded in secrecy, was the subject of endless speculation. But through it all he remained unchanged in one crucial way. At every meal in every city he always sought out the vegetarian option. And now you know, the quiet private decision that shaped the mind of David Lynch. The rest of the story